Dispatch is a game that came out of nowhere. I remember tuning into the Game Awards and being super interested in the type of game they were trying to sell. The genre of the Walking Dead style of games is starting to go away, sadly, considering the layoffs the company was and are still going through. Damn, we still even haven't seen season 2 of The Wolf Among Us yet. So when Dispatch came out, I saw all over YouTube and X about how awesome the first 2 episodes were, and fortunately I wasn't spoiled. I decided to buy it, and I'm so glad I did. Dispatch is a game that has the potential to be life-changing, at least at the time I'm writing this script. The moments of comedy and lightheartedness is something in a game I never thought I'd cherish as much as I did. But also moments of deep thought and true friendship came to a surprise. I never thought I'd be playing a truly deep game like this. Smiles were smiled, tears were shed, and laughs were caused. And I think this goes for the entire community. I don't think anyone knew how special this game would be, and it just kept getting better with each episode. Just look at all the playthroughs that are up on YouTube. Berleezy with his playthrough and the reactions the game gave him. You have Jacksepticeye, who teared up at episode 5 and 6. Not to mention he is literally in the game. After taking in the episode you just played, you can't help but tune into other people's playthroughs and see their reaction, which is typically the same as everyone else's. Well, we don't mention the Speed's playthrough. That was funny. Regardless, Dispatch releases in 2 episode increments, and each of those increments has a theme, at least to me. Finding purpose, adversity, heroism, and redemption. Each episode has a purpose and is used to fill the next episode that comes after. Fillers aren't an option. Everything is meaningful to the plot, and sometimes you have to pay even closer attention. To break the ice to viewers who've never even heard of Dispatch and have no desire to play it, which you absolutely should play it, but whatever. Dispatch is an episodic, decision-based narrative game. The choices you make in the narrative have a heavy impact on characters, the story, the main character, and so forth. You have to take your choices carefully and on time, or else you will be punished for it later. If you've ever played The Wolf Among Us, The Walking Dead, games like that, that's exactly what Dispatch is. You play as the character Mecha-Man, or Robert Robertson, someone with no powers at all that fights an advanced mech suit in a world full of superheroes. But with his suit destroyed after a battle with the villain Shroud, he's forced to take a desk job, specifically a dispatcher for a problem child group of superheroes known as the Z-Team. I should say villains, who are being rehabilitated to get evil out of them essentially, or hopefully. There are some mini games where you send them on missions and you have to pick carefully who goes out and who you pair them with, or else the mission could potentially fail and your heroes can get injured. There are also some cool puzzle mini games that don't really add a whole lot to the game but break up the pacing in a good way with some gameplay. But for the most part, the game is entirely cutscene oriented, which is to be expected with a game like this. Dispatch is a game I love because of the message it brings and the lessons you learn from it. It's a common thing with the videos I make. Finding purpose through adversity and heroism, regardless of your upbringing, regardless of what you did in the past, and regardless of who you are as a person. Anyone can become a hero. This video will cover everything, spoilers included. This is my journey through the narrative and my thoughts behind the choices, story beats, and everything in between. I never realized that Dispatch would stick with me this much. A complete surprise, and I think you guys will feel the same way. Robert Robertson III is an interesting character to say the least. He's heroic, stoic on occasion, hilarious, but also sensitive, as we see in the first shot of the first episode. At least when it comes to his dad, the second ever Mecha-Man. The first being his grandfather, and the third, of course, being himself. Just with that first scene, we come to find out the relationship he has with his father, and it isn't exactly the best, giving off absent father vibes, if you will. And the way to cope with that would be humor, and that makes a lot of sense. It's always good to see when a humorous game is actually funny, not just trying to be funny, but it fits within every character in the game. There's a reason for it, and it isn't just thrown around, unless when we get to the dick jokes. They're funny. I don't think there's any other reason behind a dick joke. You get it. But let's fast forward to Robert taking on Shroud, or at least trying but failing. This is the main driver for Robert. Shroud is responsible for the murder of Robert's father. So, although his father was absent, he still wants that revenge. Maybe it's just a lineage of Mecha-Man he wants to keep. I guess we have to wait and see. But in his pursuit to take out Shroud, the Mecha-Man suit has been destroyed. Robert is Mecha-Man no more. Finding purpose, this is the start. Taking an unexpected turn, Robert is offered a job at SDN to be a dispatcher for Z-Team. With that offer being extremely flirty, a character named Blonde Blazer asks him this. She's one of 2 love interests in this game. The chemistry between characters is something so good and so well executed, even the most awarded TV shows don't even stand a chance to what this game offers. It's incredible, and you can't help but stay silent and watch the scene unfold with a smile on your face. And with Blazer just taking off Robert's mask, revealing who he really is, that moment I think any person would fold over. At this moment, it's unclear why she is so attracted to Robert, because it's very obvious that she is, but the scene works so well, I don't think it mattered. But this is when things get interesting, when we finally get that 9-to-5 office experience of being a superhero dispatcher while also finally meeting our band of misfits. Sonar, the bad guy voiced by Moist Critical. Malevola, dope demon lady. Punch-Up, Jacksepticeye but if he was short. Coop, a very terrifying individual. Prism, who has the ability to control light itself. Flambe, wet hair guy. Golem, young gravy, and none other than Invisigal, who you all have heard by now in some corner of the internet because of certain scenes. And of course you have characters like Chase and Royd, who aren't necessarily on the Z team, but they are supporting characters who add a huge amount to the story being told. The first character we sort of meet on the team is Invisigal, as we all know. Invisigal is complicated. She's the type of person to blurt out what's on her mind, isn't exactly the most kind person, and it's very easy to tell she has been emotionally neglected to a degree, but that's what makes her character special. And after Invisigal, let's talk about Chase, also known as Trackstar, a superhero who used to be on the Brave Brigade when they were a thing. Now he's surprisingly old and also working a 9-to-5. What I love about Chase, other than the overuse of the word fuck, is the fact that his powers have a sort of penalty. He can go faster than light, but it ages him even faster when running. Hilarious when you realize Chase in his old age looks exactly like Einstein. You know, the one who, if you guys don't get the joke, go to school. There are a lot of times where games in different mediums have a hard time portraying relationships that have been built off screen. A lot of the time it feels fake and forced. They expect us to feel the same way for a supporting character, but we've never spent any time with them. In Dispatch with Chase and Robert, they executed this very well. They did it with a simple hug and believable banter. And that really is all you need. These characters haven't seen each other in a long time. It's especially weird for Robert because he is used to Chase being a lot younger. After that realization of, holy shit, this is him, it hits you right in the feels, in a way. Hopefully I'm making sense. Just to add on, I also find it interesting how Blazer just witnesses this exchange and is in awe of how Robert and Chase communicate. I think we all have a friend or brother like that where we act mean to each other, but it's a form of endearment. Just another thing that this game does well when it comes to dialogue. Now, the theme of finding purpose is simple and self-explanatory, but with these first episodes, specifically the second one, the purpose stems from troubles with Invisigal. The second episode is about questioning Robert on how much he wants this. There will be tons of hardships in mentoring, so when Invisigal heads over to the donut shop, regardless of what option you pick, she doesn't listen to you. That is what pushes Robert in how he wants to take this. And for a second episode, that's exactly the kind of theme you want to convey. You want to test the player on their willingness to work with Invisigal, while also making it hard for them to dislike her, mostly because of her insanely well-written personality. And even when she punches Robert in the face shortly after, in the break room, you could see why she did what she did. Robert questioned her background, acted like he was the only one with a hard childhood and hero upbringing, when in reality, Invisigal had it just as rough, and maybe even worse. It's why it's so important to pick the right decisions in this game, or else Invisigal could either be on the side of villainy or turn to heroism. Mentorship is key. Find a purpose. And at the end of the conversation, Robert does just that, letting Blazer know he takes this shit seriously. Yes, he wants his suit back and to go back out in the field, but a real superhero helps others regardless of that situation. And I appreciate that for Robert's character. It's pivotal. I believe that episodes 3 and 4 are when the most growth happens with the Z team for multiple reasons. First, the decision to cut someone from the team. Hindsight, does this decision matter much in the grand scheme of things? No, not really, but the message it sends to everyone, especially Invisigal, is critical. But leading up to that, the Z team takes this news as an every man for themselves type of mentality. Teammates sabotage one another, and of course that leads to a decline of successful calls. Gameplay wise, yes, it was irritating.
On the team, right?
And And of course, as you would expect with Invisigal being at the very bottom of the leaderboard, she sabotages as well. But this time, we get to see the same villain that was at the donut shop who runs free yet again, a second time that he has escaped under Invisigal's watch. It's also important to point out that if you pay attention, she wasn't even trying to go for the dude. She was only going for Malevola. This adds to the frustration and troubles in the player's head on, you know what, maybe she should be cut over everyone else. So what is the only thing you can do when things go to shit in a corporate setting? You call a team meeting in the meeting room. Pep talks in games, to me at least, have always been cheesy and never got their point across. A lot of rambling and sentences that don't make sense or too cliche. Dispatch is kind of different. Yes, there are some cringe within the dialogue for Robert, but when it comes to the scenario that he's in, talking to all these villains, prior villains that is, it makes sense. These guys only listen to cuss words and being real with one another. The cutscene in the prior episode where Robert tells Blazer that they can't treat these guys like regular old superheroes that coincidentally work the 9 to 5, you just can't treat them that way. You have to treat them like villains. You must be in their sphere of thinking and decision making, and with that knowledge, make them understand where they went wrong. And sometimes in this instance, you have to give some tough love every now and again. It's the only thing they listen to, in his words. And this ties into the theme of adversity. What do you do when you're presented with a challenge? Do you crumble, or do you charge into it headfirst and come out the other way? After the meeting, in everyone's case, they do very well. A lot better than the prior shift, except one person, and I think you can guess who it is. If you want to genuinely help people, there are individuals who need a little extra push, and in this case, it's Invisigal. This scene right here was pivotal to me. Right then I realized that this game was special. Invisigal thinks her powers define her. Quite literally, explaining that the power of being invisible is more up a villain's alley than a hero. Of course, the player is going to make a weird face and say it doesn't make sense, but that's the point. Invisigal is trying to cop out. Her excuse isn't supposed to make sense, trying to justify potentially getting cut, making it easier on her and the Z team. The scene is great because Robert doesn't let her quit. In fact, he says fate. She gets another chance at taking this villain down. Adversity. The next episode is about 50% romance, 40% gameplay, and 10% signs of adversity. Although I love that 90% majority, I want to talk about that last 10%. Early in the episode, you have the option to either pick Waterboy or Phenomenon. I chose Waterboy in my playthrough, so this conversation is going to pertain mostly to him, but I imagine it would be the same with Phenomenon. At the end, Waterboy's hiding in the janitor's closet in obvious sadness, or something along those lines. As someone who has been kind of in a similar situation, I knew where this was going to lead. Waterboy is unfortunately the punching bag of the Z team, mostly because of his awkward nature and moistness. What broke me was the scene spent with him and Robert in that janitor's closet. Waterboy struggles from self-doubt, whether that be from unsure responses to give, worrying about what he says is wrong, or maybe he's just scared. He will get yelled at because people simply don't like him. Regardless, just having Robert there, letting him know that he understands and to believe in himself, it widens Waterboy's eyes and gives that spark of adversity to overcome his stutter. Yes, they don't like him right now, and regardless of what he says, they still won't like him. If that's the case, then why does he care so much? He needs to focus on himself to understand what kind of hero he needs to be. This last section of the game, at least for these episodes, really solidified in my mind that yes, Robert was right in the beginning. The powers don't make you the superhero, it's the actions. In Robert's case, even now working a 9 to 5 behind a desk, he still finds a way to be the hero, no matter the circumstance. It's one of the many reasons why I love the narrative of this game. Episodes 5 and 6, I believe, are my favorite episodes in the entire game because of what it means for the overarching story, especially for certain characters, which I'll mention in a minute. To summarize episode 5 briefly, because the important part happens at the end, Robert gets invited by the Z team to a supervillain bar. You can imagine that this could end in one of two ways. Either Robert gets out scot-free and gains the respect of the Z team and every other supervillain in that bar, or more likely a brawl breaks out no matter what, and at the end of it all, Z team is beaten up. Well, the second one is what happened, and unfortunately the brawl started by Shroud's gang. Not really a coincidence, I don't think. The important part I mentioned before, is when Robert has the choice to either air out his laundry and tell the team that he's Mecha-Man or still keep it a secret. This is important because now Robert has gained the trust of everyone in the team for the most part. The decision you make here can impact all of that. If you tell them you're Mecha-Man, Robert has a fear of Flambe incinerating him, and he told Invisigal earlier that it's likely he was the one that ruined their lives of villainy in the first place. But if he does tell everyone, it shows the trust he places with them. That the only way for the team to continue to be successful is to know everyone for what they truly are. You can make an argument for each decision that it's correct, and that's the hard part. For my decision, I chose to tell the team that Robert is in fact Mecha-Man for multiple reasons. For one, I knew the truth would come out anyway at some point. It's better for it to come out in Robert's mouth than someone else and the team be surprised in a bad way. Two, from a mentor standpoint, I thought it was the best for Invisigal to show here that it's okay to tell the truth, and it's okay to let her guard down occasionally, especially when it comes to the team. Third, it gets the team to trust you more given the circumstances that happened prior. You were just in a bar fight and held your own against dudes with superpowers. Robert is just an average Joe without his suit. Him managing on his own will raise questions regardless. The team even has their suspicions earlier in the episode in the break room. So with that in mind, might as well come clean. Also, the moment just felt right. If I was a writer and I wanted to reveal Robert's superhero identity to the team, this would have been it. Any other time would have either been a bad thing in the context of the story, or it would have been a slip of the tongue at some point and the meaning would have been lost entirely. The whole meaning of Robert coming clean was to show everyone how serious he is, how much he cares, and how much trust he puts into the Z team, and the reactions mean everything. Flambe, of course, gets heated, no pun intended, and wanted to torch Robert, but because of Robert's rapport with the team, he gets saved by Gollum, of all people. And after everything, everyone wanted to share their actual names with Robert. It's a huge deal in the grand scheme of things. I love this episode because it sets up so much for the next episode, and it hits you right in the feels. In the next episode, it's essentially a house party for Robert after everyone gets close with one another, a celebration for the success of the Z team. We also include Chase, Blazer, and Beef here. The catch is there's an ulterior motive here for Invisigal to steal the astral pulse back from wherever it is, and Invisigal wants to do it right then and there with the Z team. It seems stupid, and you have a choice to either back Invisigal or side with Blazer's argument, to wait until the next day and plan the entire thing. And considering there was some booze involved, Chase goes off on Invisigal with some uncalled for language. Because of that, the whole party gets ruined. That's essentially more or less of what happened. After, though, is the important conversation with Chase, with a focus on what exactly a hero can be. Is it something you're born to do? Is it innate? Is it a product of your environment, or are you a lost cause? I'll let the scene play for itself.
You ever think about why we do what we do? Help people. Put it all on the line for someone who won't ever know your name, won't send you a thank you card, won't be at your bedside when you get hurt.
It's just the right thing to do.
Sure. And you think the Z team will be able to tell the difference?
That first week, Izzy was gonna walk off the team. You know, she's feeling low, talking about how she was born with powers that always meant she'd end up as a villain. Like he was fated. So obviously I gave her the pep talk, you know, like, that's all bullshit. You make up your own fate, yada yada. I don't even remember what I said, but I do remember thinking, oh, fuck. Yeah, that must have been hard. Like if I didn't have you, you know, and my dad, where would I have ended up?
You were always good. That was always in you. It's what makes us different from a thief like her.
Oh, come on. You've stolen things too.
What? You racist motherfucker, I never stole a fucking thing in my entire fucking life.
Chase, you've literally stolen things from me.
Oh yeah, but that doesn't count. That was for somebody else.
What, you quietly contemplating?
Yeah, I guess I hadn't considered some things. But I think the answers are out there if you just listen to the wind.
I I see why you and Beef get along.
What makes this scene for me is the fact that Chase keeps saying these untrue things about Invisigal, but as he keeps talking, he starts to realize that he may have been wrong about the whole thing, that he wasn't considering how Invisigal felt herself. This speaks volumes when Invisigal eventually gets into trouble while trying to get the Astral Pulse herself and almost doesn't make it when Shroud shows up. This is true heroism from Chase. To put aside the prior argument, prior thoughts on the person, to look at Robert and realize how much this person means to him. And at that moment, it wasn't even a question. He had to save Invisigal for Robert's sake. Keep up.
Get up. Get up!
Keep up.
No! Okay, yeah, you're good. Okay. Where's my keys? Where's my fucking keys?
Hey, wake up. No, don't fucking do this, please. Please.
Chase risked his life for the sake of Robert, Vizzy, and the Z team. Everyone in the world that played this game got emotional during this moment. What hits harder, other than the heroism of Chase, is just the relationship building throughout the entire game up until this episode. Writing, personality, interactions, they all fit the character so well and made him quite possibly my favorite character in the game. And don't even get me started on the keep up line, it's just a nail in the coffin. It's such a great character, and honestly the pacing of him air quote dying, supposedly, is great timing. I do have some gripes later on with what they chose to do with this character, but that's a whole different argument entirely. Episode 6 was my favorite episode for the fact that it showed true heroism. Maybe the last episode's a close second. The last two episodes are important in dealing with high stakes. What do you do in that scenario when you're tasked with being a legitimate hero in the last line of defense? At least that goes for the very last episode. The one before that is mostly the aftermath of what happened prior. Episode 7 is an episode that deals with the repercussions of the actions of Invisigal. Do you keep her on the team or do you kick her out due to the demand of the other members? For me at least, I think it's incredibly silly to kick her out and blame her for everything that happened, mostly because she didn't do it alone. Robert could have easily been stern and not helped her when she went in, and he could have been more vocal about wanting her to head back instead of going after the Astral Pulse. A lot of what happened lies on the shoulders of Robert as well. To kick Vizzy out is to kick Robert out, at least to me, in my head. Even vocally, I said fuck that lower morale. It just didn't make sense to make that decision. But an important conversation happens in the locker room area of SDN with Vizzy. The word important is honestly an understatement here. It was a hard listen in terms of trust more than anything. Coming clean that she was the one that placed the bomb on the back of the Mecha-Man suit, getting Robert into the situation he's in now. She explains that after that event, she wanted to change her life around, involve herself with the Phoenix program, and rehabilitate herself. During this time, I didn't care anymore, and neither did Robert in my playthrough. I viewed things as overtime. The SDN gig was a blessing in disguise. Robert got to meet the team, create new bonds, got to see other viewpoints beyond just the good and evil bullshit that we all know. We got to understand who these people are deep down. With that in mind, Robert forgave Vizzy instantly. It didn't matter anymore. The whole situation gave new life to what and who Mecha-Man was and still is. Although this plot twist in my mind was fairly obvious after a couple episodes, I was still surprised to a certain degree. It made sense for what the story was trying to tell you. Asking the question, what do you do when someone on the team you grew to know and love ruined what you had before? For other playthroughs I watched, they were still looking at the past. They were caught up with still being Mecha-Man and what happened before when Vizzy was a legitimate villain. The whole point of the Z team was to rehabilitate them. Vizzy knew she fucked up, at least in her mind. She did what she had to do to be able to essentially have working lungs again. And with that in mind, and telling her the truth to Robert, I don't know. The point is to accept their wrongdoings in the past and pave a better path forward for them. Vizzy was going to stay on the team, no matter what. Now, the weird thing for me in this scene was Vizzy kissing up on Robert. If you chose to reject her and go with Blazer, it just comes off as assault. I'm not sure that was the right play here from the team. There could have been other ways to show her affection. What they chose, not. No, I cringed when it happened. One of the scenes in this game that really sealed it, that it would be one of my favorites, would be the moment where they reveal who Shroud really is, or at least when we see Shroud's personality. Matt Mercer's portrayal of Shroud is just fucking chef's kiss. The voice modulation they did with him was perfect, and the spookiness that he gives is out of this world. Honestly, if Shroud was more active in this story, I would have gone as far as to say he's one of the best villains I've seen in a Telltale style video game. Just the way he mercilessly takes out the bartender without any kind of sympathy, tortures Robert all the while boasting about killing his father, it's perfect. And not to mention when blonde Blazer comes strutting into the bar and goes Super Saiyan for a few seconds, cinema. I love this game so much. The direction is just, whoo. I do think one of the soft spots of this game, though, is the reason why Shroud is the way he is. They could have gone deeper with it, because from the way things are told, it just seems like he's evil just to be evil. I know this game is more so a comedy than anything, and I guess it works with the tone of the game, but I would have loved a greater explanation as to why the Astral Pulse is so important to him, or why he hates Mecha-Man so much. I'm certain he does explain that, but if he did, it's forgettable. Like, I'm not remembering it right now. And leading into the last episode, we see the entire city of LA get attacked by Shroud's gang. That sets up a high stakes arc going forward with restoring LA and finally defeating Shroud. Honestly, what I loved about the beginning of this episode is the progression of narrative during the gameplay section. We see growth with characters even after the decision to keep Vizzy on the squad. Characters like Prism stepping up and understanding the stakes of what's happening. Even Gollum, who is hungover, knows the stakes and chooses to participate. Almost like bonding through trauma. Maybe not trauma in this scenario, more like catastrophe. I mean, you even get to send out Blonde Blazer here. It was incredibly fun. On a side note, they should add these missions as a separate mode to the game. It's very addictive. Moving on, after the whole thing with Vizzy, there is this thought in the back of your mind that maybe we shouldn't trust her. After everything she said. I know I said that I forgave her almost instantly, but I'd be lying if I said that I just wasn't curious. After Shroud's men attack SDN and we see Royd fighting with Vizzy, it brings that thought right to the front of your brain. I mean, she literally had the Astral Pulse this entire time and tried to insert it into the suit, and only after getting caught, she says that she was trying to help Robert. Very suspicious. So, what's the right decision here? Honestly, I don't think there is a right decision regardless of the outcome, which I love. Vizzy isn't necessarily lying, but she is by default by not saying anything. If Vizzy had just explained what she was trying to do, this fiasco would not have happened, and it would have been easier to navigate this entire scenario. But now we must decide whether to keep her tied up or let her go to help us. I chose to let her go after a lengthy debate with myself while the game was paused. On one hand, I very much doubt Vizzy's trying to sabotage us out of hatred or jealousy. In my playthrough, I chose to romance her, so it just wouldn't make sense. So if she were to sabotage, it would be to have her lungs back again, like what she showed us back at the locker room scene. But even then, I don't know. This didn't seem like she was trying to intentionally screw us over, so I let her go. But if someone were to not trust her again because of what just happened, I wouldn't blame them. Vizzy should have just been honest from the start if she cared about Robert that much. The one issue I have about this scenario is the fact that the game never touches on why she was trying to sneak around with the suit, with the Astral Pulse in the first place, other than Shroud later saying that she was the inside informant for him. But even then, you could classify that as maybe Vizzy playing both sides. A lot of it was confusing to say the least, but regardless of the outcome, I was still on the edge of my seat. And of course, for those who have played the game, we see Robert get back into his suit, kick some ass. We see the Z team come to Robert's back and save the day. That is until the final battle between the Z team and Shroud with his big spider mech thingy. The coolest thing here is just the teamwork between the team in defeating Shroud. We get Vizzy and Malevola working together after going at it during the week of team cuts. We see Chase, who I forgot to mention got revitalized by Blazer's amulet, go at it, and Robert finally getting the upper hand. It just makes you feel good inside. Also, I just want to say the decision to use beef as the emotional manipulation to, get Robert to give up the Astral Pulse. Great way for any of the players to be immediately pissed off. I mean, let's just put that in there. When that happened, I was like, holy shit, don't dare. Like, this is my homie, beef, but I don't know. Regardless, it feels even better when you succeed as a mentor. Peep the achievement. And Vizzy doesn't turn into a villain. We have a feel-good ending with Shroud. I guess, getting an Astral Pulse induced power high, I guess, for like 2 seconds, but then Robert takes things into his own hands and takes him down without killing him. The team jumping for joy after the victory, Robert getting that kiss from Vizzy and Blazer commenting, saying to not fuck it up, Chase being himself and cussing on live television. This whole ending felt right. It felt good, and it felt deserved given the choices I made. A lot of games nowadays fail to do that, whether that be weird choices throughout the story that give the ending less meaning, maybe the story just overall wasn't the best, or for me, a lot of my favorite games are dark and end dark, give hope for the future, or maybe end on a decent note with nothing good or bad to take from it. The Last of Us Part 2 is an example. It's a very depressing game. RDR 1 and 2, at the end, it's not really good or bad, it's just there's a lot of sad moments. Or God of War Ragnarok, where there's like bits of hope, but there is an underlying tone that the work isn't done. These games at the end don't necessarily make you feel happy at the end. There's always a somber tone or slight hope, tons of work to be done type of mentality. Dispatch gave a message, but also ends in a way that is fitting for what the game is. Obviously, it depends on choices. It makes you feel good. Tears of joy, if you will. It's just been a while since I felt that. But before the video ends, I do want to touch on the romance in Dispatch, which of course revolves around Vizzy and Blazer. Starting with Blazer, the romance with her felt very natural. As I said at the beginning of the video, the banter between Robert and her, with the subtle head movements and non-verbal communication, it feels very real. It's an odd thing to say, but it's true. Something that genuinely gives you butterflies inside and has you kicking your feet in the air. There is a sincere care between the two of them, even when they meet for the first time. Blazer senses the genuine heroism that is in Robert, along with hearing about the legacy of Mecha-Man. Not to mention, Robert is the first hero that she can relate with. We can see in episode 2, we meet Phenomenon, Blazer's boyfriend. He's an alien that doesn't understand human emotions all that well, and Blazer isn't used to having a relatable conversation. Conversations about what being a hero is truly like. Relatability is what makes the relationships great in the game. Even just beyond the romance aspect, even just them being platonic towards the end. The scene where Chase is in the hospital bed after rescuing Vizzy, the motherly gesture that she gives, making sure Robert knows that she's there for him, that he isn't alone. And that by itself almost made me tear up. That's relationship building at its best. But moving on to the romance option that I experienced and can speak the most on, Invisigal. Invisigal's romance seems like it was the intended romance of the game. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, but it's clear. The game tries to steer you in her direction throughout the entire game. But I think that makes it so if you do choose her, it's incredibly worthwhile. When Robert first meets her in the meeting room with his shirt off, ever since that moment of Vizzy hitting on Robert, you can very much see the mutual attraction. And after that moment, when Robert has his one-on-one with her about not giving up and trying for a third time to right her wrong against the villain, the attraction was beyond physical. It's clear that Vizzy, to a certain degree, was emotionally neglected. She's struggling to find something that holds her down and grounds her. When Robert does just that and puts her back on her path, it clicks. She then has this internal battle, as we've seen. She was an informant of sorts with Shroud after Robert's suit was destroyed. And with knowing Robert and the person he is, along with being on the Z team, it changes her. That in turn makes it paramount to gain her trust. And it may be toxic and unhealthy, but the trajectory of how Robert handles situations with her will either make her a good person or a bad person. Regardless of toxicity, I think it makes things more interesting with romance in general. You want a story that's interesting and engaging, and this does just that. Not even trying to be funny, we all meme on that one scene in episode 4, but after it you're left with like, oh, she really into me like that? Like, you know, it sounds dumb, but look at the reactions of everyone that witnessed that scene. They acted the same way, or they just said nothing and were screaming the whole time. Shortly after, at the end of episode 4, you get your first decision to either choose Blonde Blazer or Invisigal. This decision with Invisigal goes without saying, very important. At this point, she's willing to make herself vulnerable with someone else, to maybe double down on questioning whether joining the Z team was worth it, to maybe question her allegiance to either helping Shroud or follow her feelings. And when Robert surprisingly shows up at that movie theater, she's stunned. You can take it at face value and she's stunned at the fact that he is literally there, or as I take it, she's stunned at the fact that her decision to join the Z team ended up being worthwhile, that Robert made it worth it. Next, after the bar fight and Robert told everyone that he is Mecha-Man, that was important to her. To hear it from Robert on the reasoning he's telling everyone this, earlier in the episode, Vizzy said something along the lines of, it's better to tell everyone and get it over with so there are no problems later. Robert followed that advice, but she doesn't follow her own. For reference, I'm alluding to the fact that she is the one that ended the Mecha-Man suit. The subtle body language she showed when Robert came clean, it was eating her up inside. But this is important later on in the locker room when she eventually comes clean. It was as good as a time as any in her eyes. I already gave my piece on the whole locker room kiss, but that was coming from the lens of what if I chose Blonde Blazer? If he did choose Invisigal, the scene comes off a lot better, but I think the kiss is what led me to eventually cut her free when Royd zip-tied her hands. That kiss wasn't fake. The feelings were real, and you could see it clear. She likes Robert a lot, and it's great writing. You want to have an internal conflict brewing with players. On one hand, she came clean about what really happened, and she stole the Astral Pulse and said nothing. Why on earth would we trust her? But on the other hand, the feelings she showed and the connections her and Robert had, that was genuine. It's amazing. And if you made all the correct decisions when it came to Invisigal, the ending and the relationship became even more satisfying. And instead of killing Shroud, which Vizzy can do if you made different decisions, you can spare him and she takes the bullet for you. If that isn't the definition of love, I don't know what is. And with that cliche-ass scene with the sunrise in the background, I still love it. It's beautiful as hell. With it all ending with a kiss on a stretcher. Just absolute peak fiction. I know I've been glazing this game for like 30 plus minutes, but damn, this game just took me by surprise. Dispatch made me feel things. A game that was a surprise and came out of nowhere. It taught me what heroism truly is. It isn't about powers. It isn't about a cool costume and cape. It really isn't about the feats you accomplish. It's about what you do for others. Heroism is being there for someone that feels like they aren't welcome. Letting them know that it's okay to be themselves. To not second guess everything. They're perfect the way they are. Just believe in yourself. Heroism is pushing someone into believing that they belong, regardless of the past traumas and the stigmas and labels that they were given. You can succeed if you put your mind to it. Heroism doesn't have to be a direct action like taking down a bad guy or saving the entire world. Heroism can be the simple things, like giving someone a chance, being a shoulder to cry on, buying a friend a drink, acceptance, even after everything that happened. Heroism can just be a dude doing his job, being there for his team. Dispatch is a game that I won't ever forget, and I'm so glad I gave it a chance. And if I'm honest, I almost didn't. Telltale games in this day and age were unfortunately fading. The Wolf Among Us 2 has brought no news at all, and the other games of that nature just hasn't lived up to the hype. Dispatch deserves your money. The cast did an amazing job with their characters, the writing team blew expectations out of the water, and even the gameplay minigames were fun as hell. I wish it was its own mode that you can play. Dispatch was phenomenal. It's a game that I didn't know would stick with me this much, and I know a lot of people feel the same way. Thank you guys for watching this short little video. I have a couple more projects lined up. If y'all have any game recommendations for me to cover, put in the comments below. I know this video could feel like I'm rambling, but like I'm genuinely serious. This game is definitely worth your time and it will teach you lessons that you never thought you needed. Just kind of saying my piece on this game, kind of like a spoiler review of sorts. If you want more videos like this, just let me know. But in the meantime, I have 2 more projects lined up. One is a lot more big than this one, so it's going to take some time. So in the meantime, I may release some shorter videos, kind of similar to my last 2. So have a good one, everyone, and play Dispatch. See you later.